Today we are going to be working on lesson 11, the practice and problem solving, page 115 and 116. We are going to be estimating using benchmark fractions. So our example problem says, David grew 1 3/4 inches last year and 1 5/8 inches this year. Estimate how much he grew in the 2 years. You can estimate 1 3/4 plus 1 5/8 using benchmark fractions. The number line below shows common fractions used as benchmark fractions to estimate sums and differences. And we can see that that goes from 0 to 2, and they have cut that into fourths. 1 3/4 is already one of the benchmark fractions, so just estimate 1 5/8. 1 5/8 is a little greater than 1 1/2. So estimate using 1 1/2. So we have 1 3/4 plus 1 1/2, and they've changed that to 1 3/4 plus 1 2/4 is 2 5/4 or 3 1/4. So this is our estimation for our problem. So the sum is a little greater than 3 1/4, so David grew a little more than 3 1/4 inches. So look at the example problem. Explain how you know that 1 5/8 is a little greater than 1 1/2. So we know that because 1 4/8 is the same thing as 1 1/2. But I'm looking at my numerator of 5, and that's more than 4. So I know that 1 5/8 is greater than 1 4/8. And we know that 1 4/8 is the same thing as 1 1/2. So 1 5/8 is greater than 1 1/2. So now for problem number 2, we're going to find the actual sum of 1 3/4 plus 1 5/8 to determine how much David grew in 2 years. And then we're going to explain how you know your answer is reasonable. So we're going to first have to change our denominators. 1 3/4 plus 1 5/8. I'm going to make it so that they both have a denominator of 8. And 1 5/8, it works already. We just have to change 1 3/4 to something over 8. And to turn 4 into 8, I have to multiply it by 2. What I do to my denominator, I have to do to my numerator. So 3 times 2 gives me 6. So now I'm going to add my whole numbers. 1 plus 1 equals 2. Let's add our numerators. 6 plus 5 equals 11. And then I'm going to keep my denominator the same. So now I've run into a little bit of a problem. I have an improper fraction here where my numerator is larger than my denominator. So I'm going to take out 8 over 8, which is the same thing as 1 whole. And it's going to give me 3. And I'm going to ask myself, how many more do I have left over? When I take an 8 out of 8, I still have 3 left over. So my answer is 3 3/8. So 3 3/8 inches is my solution. But then it asks me to explain how you know your answer is reasonable. Well, let's go back up here to what we said was our estimation. So we know that that answer is reasonable because our answer is a little bit greater than 3 1/4. How do I know that? If I change 3 1/4 into a denominator of 8, I would have to multiply this by 2 and do the same thing to my numerator. So 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. So look how similar these are. So this was our estimation, this one and this one. And this is our answer right here. So we were pretty close with our estimation. Problem number 3. Irene makes 4 2/3 cups of pancake batter. She splits the batter into 2 bowls. She mixes blueberries into 2 1/4 cups of batter and walnuts into the rest of the batter. Estimate how much of the batter has walnuts in it. Explain your estimate. So I see that she makes 4 2/3 cups of pancake batter. And if she mixes blueberries into 2 1/4 cups, then that means the rest of it is going to have walnuts. So I'm going to take 4 2/3 and I'm subtracting 2 1/4. But this is just an estimate, so that means I get to just kind of round it out, figure out what 4 2/3 is closest to and what 2 1/4 is closest to, and that's going to be my estimate. So 4 2/3, that to me is going to be closest to 4 1/2, and then 2 1/4, that is going to be closest to 2. Now you might have something a little bit different, but 4 1/2 minus 2, that's going to be closest to 2 1/2 cups. And remember, this is just an estimate, but it should be something about 2 1/2 cups. Number 4, find the actual amount of batter that has walnuts in it, and then explain how you know your answer is reasonable. So now we're going to actually subtract 4 2/3 minus 2 1/4. So just like we always have to do, we have to find a common denominator for 4 and 3. So I'm going to make it 12. So what do I have to do to, I'm going to change marker colors. What do I have to do to 3 to turn into 12? I'm multiplying by 4. What I do to my denominator, I do to my numerator. 2 times 4 is 8. What do I do to 4 to turn into 12? Multiply by 3. What do I do to my denominator? I do to my numerator. 1 times 3 is 3. So now we're going to subtract. Whole numbers, 4 minus 2 is 2. 8 minus 3 is 5, and we keep our denominator the same. So our answer is 2 5/12 cups. Now, once we have to explain how we know our answer is reasonable. So I'm going to compare our actual answer to our estimation. So our estimation says 2 1/2 cups, and our actual answer is 2 5/12 cups. Well, I know that 2 6/12 is the same thing as 2 1/2 cups. So we're just 1/12 away from having the actual estimation be our real answer. So I'm going to put that 2 5/12 is very close to the estimation. Only 1/12 of a cup away. And number 5, Irene makes the second batch of 3 1/4 cups of pancake batter. She wants to know how much more batter she made in the first batch. She estimates that the difference between the sizes of the two batches, 4 2/3 minus 3 1/4, is 2 1/12. Explain why this estimate is not reasonable. Okay, so I kind of think this one's a little bit tricky. So I like to look at it this way. I kind of like to write it out. So she's saying that 4 2/3 minus 3 1/4 would equal, and I'm going to put a question mark, 2 1/12. So if that's true, question mark, then that would also mean that 3 1/4 plus, over here, our difference of 2 1/12 would equal 4 2/3. But we know, because we can add pretty easily in our heads, that 3 plus 2 of a whole number would not equal 4. And I know you're probably thinking in your head, well, Mrs. DeRose, you know that already. Of course I do. Whole numbers, if we're adding 3 plus 2, that equals 5 as a whole number. So this cannot be true. Just like when we're estimating, we look at whole numbers first. 4 minus 3, that should equal 1 and then some kind of fraction, right? So this cannot be a good estimate for Irene.